Revelation 3155. From the 11th of June 1944. Maturation of the soul in the gears of the world. In the gears of the world, the human soul remains undeveloped as long as it cannot detach itself in hours of quiet contemplation or establish the connection with God through eager activity of love, for which it is fully offered the opportunity even in the midst of the world. And yet, the human being is placed in it so that he overcomes the world and finds the path to God in it, because this requires increased willpower. If the human being shuts himself off from the world, his merit is less, for he avoids all temptations and resistances. He does not need to fight the battle to which the human being is exposed who does not flee from the world's gears. The greater the resistances, the more strength they require, but the greater is also the success which the soul can chalk up if it overcomes all resistances. And therefore great demands are placed on the human being which he should not evade. He has to fulfill his earthly task, he has to be exposed to earthly temptations, yet nothing should stop him from seeking the heartfelt bond with God, for from this he also draws his strength to fulfill the earthly demands. Nevertheless, he will also be able to be spiritually active if this is what his will strives for. But if the human being neither lives in love nor finds time for inner contemplation which introduces him to the spiritual kingdom, he will remain in the same degree of spiritual maturity or even develop regressively if matter captivates him and he is devoid of all love. Then he will live his life on earth in vain, yet even seclusion would not change such a person spiritually but only make him sullen and dissatisfied because spiritual striving is alien to him and he cannot fulfill his earthly desire. The human being can make God his own in every situation of life if his heart urges him to do so, and thus he can also serve God always and everywhere. The world's bustle will often give him enough opportunity to serve his neighbor, whereas the human being in solitude lives only for himself and is hindered in his activity of love. The latter, however, brings the human being to maturity, for it brings him closer to God. And therefore every opportunity should be used to practice serving neighborly love. In the hustle and bustle of the world, greater opportunities for development are often recognizable for the human being, for hardship and suffering require help which every human being can provide for his fellow human being, and spiritual hardship is also particularly great in the midst of the world. And this is also a field of work where the human being can be particularly successful. And therefore God calls his servants in the midst of the world and presents the hardship of their fellow human beings to them so that they will now work diligently, so that they will practice love and give love in the midst of the world and in hours of inner contemplation gain the strength to overcome all temptations and oppositions of the world. And thus they can also mature in the midst of the world to the height. Amen.